Just coming in, and the Cape Coast High Court has declared as null and void the parliamentary election in Assin North and directed for a re-election. The outcome of the polls, which saw NDC candidate Joe Jache Kwesen, was challenged in court on allegation of having dual citizenship status, which barred him from contesting for the position. Now, the court in the early stages of the case granted an injunction to halt the swearing in of Mr. Kwesen, but this was fiercely rejected by the minority in Parliament. The MP participated in the election of the Speaker despite caution from the Clerk of Parliament over possible contempt of court. He, however, participated in the election. Now, the court, after 7 months of hearing arguments of parties in the case, annulled the election and directed for the organization of a new election. Now, let's bring you some background to this, because the case of the petitioner in this particular matter is that the MP, or the Member of Parliament, Joe Jache Kwesen, as at the time or the close of nominations on the 9th of October, had still not renounced his Canadian citizenship or nationality. And he says that Assin North MP, who still holds himself as a Member of Parliament, is a complete violation of Article 94 Clause 2A, and the court should declare his election null and void. Now, handing his judgment on Wednesday, the judge said the MP, Joe Jache Kwesen, violated constitutional provisions and other statutory provisions that guide Ghana's elections. According to the judge, on the capacity of the petitioner to maintain an action against the Assin North MP, the MP's challenge of his capacity was overruled. He said the petitioner had the capacity and the petition was competent. Now, the court further explained that its jurisdiction could be invoked in an election petition when the EC conducts a parliamentary election and declares the results of the contest. Thus, he argued the court's jurisdiction was properly invoked. Now, the independence of the Electoral Commission in the conduct of elections is not in doubt, and the court won't interfere in the operations of the EC unless an illegality and an unconstitutionality are being perpetrated by the EC. And so the judge ruled that nothing precludes a petitioner from invoking the High Court's original jurisdiction, and so he dismissed this challenge by the MP. Now, let's bring you some background to this matter, because the Supreme Court on Tuesday asked for the withdrawal of an application seeking its supervisory jurisdiction in a case where the Cape Coast High Court was set to decide a petition challenging the eligibility of the Assin North Member of Parliament, Joe Jache Kwesen. Now, the Apex Court argued that due process was not followed. The application was subsequently withdrawn by lawyers for the MP, paving way for the Cape Coast High Court to rule on the matter today. Now, this comes after lawyers for the Member of Parliament for Assin North, Joe Jache Kwesen, withdrew an application seeking to invoke the supervisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to interpret certain constitutional provisions. And so the MP's lawyers, Justin Pavra Teriwa, had tried without success to get the Cape Coast High Court hearing the election petition involving his client to refer Article 94 Clause 2A of the 1992 Constitution to the Supreme Court for interpretation. Now, a 5-member Supreme Court presided over by Justice Yao Apau struck the application out after the MP's lawyer had withdrawn it. The judges explained to the lawyer that he should have formally applied to the High Court to refer the said constitutional provision to the Supreme Court for interpretation, and if he refused, there would have been grounds to refer same to the Supreme Court. And so the substantive matter here, or the news itself here, is that the Cape Coast High Court has declared the election of Joe Jache Kwesen as Member of Parliament for Assin North as null and void, and ordered a rerun of that election. The petitioner, an individual or citizen who filed the petition at the Cape Coast High Court, was seeking this particular relief on the grounds that as of the time or close of nomination in October of 2020, the MP had not renounced his Canadian nationality, and for that matter held dual citizenship going into the 2020 general elections. And so the judge, Cape Coast High Court judge, after all the back and forth, had declared this particular election that saw Joe Gyachi Quayson represents the people of Assin North in Parliament as a null and void. We remember that on the day of the swearing in of the 8th Parliament, there was controversy surrounding his seat or his position as MP for Assin North, and of course leading into the election of the Speaker, to the effect that he was at a point cautioned of the consequences of his decision to participate in the election of the Speaker, Alban S.K. Bagman. And so this caution actually came from the Clerk of Parliament, who at the time sat in and oversaw the election of the Speaker. So currently, as it stands, the Cape Coast High Court, following the earlier dismissal of an application for interpretation by lawyers of the Assin North MP. This dismissal, of course, came at the Supreme Court, and so following that, a ruling or a judgment today has come for a new election in Assin North, declaring the current MP, Joe Gyachi Quayson, his election as null and void, and calling for a new election to be run by the Electoral Commission at Assin North for a new member of Parliament. So their victory for the MPP, of course, in this particular matter, and of course, as you would have it, failure of the NDC, because Joe Gyachi Jackson represented the National Democratic Congress in Parliament for the people of Assin North. So that's the issue or the news that is coming in now. We're going to delve deep into this matter, trace the genesis of this particular story. Bear in mind that the 2020 election has suffered its own difficulties or challenges in the aftermath. We've seen a number of petitions. There's that of Techiman South, where Martin Ajay Corsa's seat is being challenged in court, and then of course there was this particular one, Assin North. There's also a case of dual citizenship in Jomoro, where the seat of or the eligibility of the Member of Parliament for Jomoro, the NDC MP for Jomoro, is also being challenged in court, also on the basis of dual citizenship. And so, as we have it, that of Assin North has been decided. The High Court in Cape Coast has ruled that the election be null and void, and the new election be run by the Electoral Commission. And so we're going to be doing justice to this particular matter. We're going to bring in one of our court correspondents who has been following this particular case with an eagle's eye, of course. He has details on this particular matter. Fred Tete Jabano joins me in studio. Welcome, Fred.
Thank you, Nana.
So the court ruling has come. What next?
What's next is that the Member of Parliament, or the former Member of Parliament for Assin and North,
as it stands
now, cannot hold himself as Member of Parliament.
Yeah.
There are different options available for him now. He can go and appeal this particular decision by the court, by going to the Court of Appeal to get this particular decision overturned. If that also fails, he has another opportunity at the Supreme Court to go and test the law at the Supreme Court. But as it stands now, once he hasn't triggered any of these actions, it means that he's no longer Member of Parliament till this particular actions, options available to him are triggered.
Right. It's been a 6-month journey in court. I mean, from the time the petition was filed, we saw the back and forth, accusations, counter accusations of either teams accusing each other of delaying the processes. At a point, we saw the court slapping some charges on the MP and his lawyers and all that. But in summary, what would you make of the court process leading to this particular judgment?
This particular case has been very controversial, especially when you look at it from the very beginning, on the 9th of the 7th of January, where there was supposed to be a swearing in on the incoming MPs. what happened, you recall the story where there was an injunction which was secured from the High Court in Cape Coast and delivered to the Clerk of Parliament at the time, who was in charge of Parliament. There was a back and forth between the minority and the majority as to whether this particular member of Parliament should be allowed to stay in the chamber and be sworn in to take part in the election of a speaker. You recall that this went in back and forth. There was a lot of back and forth till finally they decided that they'll leave him and take action later. Right after this, the people went on to court to ensure that they get what they wanted by saying that, look, this gentleman had a Ghanaian citizenship and was holding a Canadian citizenship. And by the laws of the country, you could not have a dual citizenship and contest for a position for the member of Parliament. So it went on, and whilst in court, there were a lot of controversies, including which had to do with even lawyers. From the very beginning when this case was started, it was started with Abraham Amaleba being the lawyer for Mr. Kwesi. He made a number of applications before the courts. These applications were dismissed on a number of occasions. At a point, he even wrote a letter to the Chief Justice asking for a change in the judge because he believed that the judge was not being fair to him and his clients. Due to some of the pronouncements he had allegedly made. You recall that this particular request was rejected by the Chief Justice, and based on this, Mr. Amaleba had to withdraw from the case, where a new lawyer was brought in. The process continued, and still processes were sent in, applications were sent in, this were dismissed. Finally, the court decided to set a date for judgment. But at this time, the lawyers for Mr. Kwesi had raised some concerns and asked that the High Court stays its decision or stays proceedings to allow them to sort out that particular problems or issues they thought they had with certain rulings of the court. The High Court dismissed that particular application for stay. Then they proceeded to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal heard this case on Monday and dismissed this particular case. And this case was heard alongside another dual citizenship case having to do with Jomoro. These two cases was dismissed. Yesterday, there was supposed to be another case at the Supreme Court which has to do with Assin North. But then lawyers of the MP or former MP as we speak now withdrew that particular case and they were slapped with 5,000 cedis to pay as damages. Right after that, today, the High Court, which had jurisdiction to hear this particular case, has pronounced that Mr. Kwesi indeed has dual citizenship and per the law cannot hold himself as MP, and has annulled that December 7th election. Meaning that a new election would have to be conducted by Electoral Commission in a period of days, I think 30 or 90 days. This particular election would have to be conducted. But what we are not sure of as we speak now is the next action to be taken by the former MP. Once he triggers an appeal, probably what is going to happen is that he's going to also ask for a stay of execution at the appeals court. A stay of execution, meaning that the particular order by the High Court will be put on hold till the appeals court or the Court of Appeals deals with this particular issue. If they are not satisfied with this particular issue, or both parties, either parties, whether the lawyers of the former MP or the applicant or petitioner in the case at the appeals court, when either way it goes, any of them can now head to the Supreme Court for a final determination of the matter. But as we speak now, the High Court's decision holds till any action is taken.
All right, we're going to go into the merits of the case itself, the relief sought by the petitioner, and of course the challenge as to the capacity of the petitioner himself, and at a point whether the original jurisdiction of the High Court could have been invoked in a matter of an election petition and all that. But we have a report, and so we want to trace the case in this particular report. We'll take that report and then we'll come back to the discussion.
The ruling follows a petition filed by one Michael Ankuma Nifa of Assin Breku at the Cape Coast High Court. The plaintiff, a Mason, is seeking to annul the declaration of Mr. James Jachi Kwesen as the Member of Parliament-elect for the Assin North constituency on grounds that he had held a dual citizenship at the time of filing to contest the election. According to Article 94 of Ghana's Constitution that talks about eligibility and qualification, it says a person shall not be qualified to be a member of parliament if he or she owes allegiance to a country other than Ghana unless they have renounced the citizenship of that country. There was heavy security presence at the court before the ruling. Some supporters of the opposition National Democratic Congress who were displeased with the ruling hurled insults at the plaintiff.
The court upheld the injunction and hence have placed injunction on the MP-elect, meaning that the Assin North, the people of Assin North cannot have representative and do not have representative as we speak. What kind of court system do we have in this country? We are not going to sleep. Whatever be the cause, Honorable Joe Kwesen has to be a parliamentary candidate. He will be parliamentary candidate. Now he is elect, and we know him to be elect. We are telling the whole Ghana that's it. We will never rest. Just like this dawn, we are good.
According to the lawyer of the plaintiff, Gary Nimakun, the NDC MP-elect for Assin North, James Kwesen, only renounced his Canadian citizenship on the 26th of November 2020, around which time he was filing his nomination at the Electoral Commission. He says Mr. Kwesen indeed held dual citizenship before filing his nomination.
It's not clear. They were in court, they didn't challenge the fact that it was given a certificate of renunciation on 26th of November 2020, which is post-date the time of filing, post-date the time of elections. So clearly, I don't think there's an issue. The court has done the right thing. We cannot put something on nothing. The foundation is very weak. You want to go to parliament, you must be only a citizen of Ghana. Dual citizens are not allowed to go into parliament. And therefore, the court has held so.
The ruling in the Assin North case is significant because it comes at a time when the two major parties, NDC and MPP, are in a tussle over who holds the majority seats in Parliament ahead of the inauguration of the 8th Parliament and the election of a Speaker. Per this ruling, the NDC seats will come to 136 from 137, leaving the MPP with 137 seats aside the independent MP-elect for Fomena, who has also pledged allegiance to the MPP side in Parliament. If the substantive case goes against the MP-elect, there would have to be a by-election in that constituency, and he stands the risk of being convicted.
So that was a report tracing the case right from its inception. Now, it's been an interesting one, especially when it comes to the lawyers that represented both parties. We've seen some changes in there. At a point, we saw Gary Nimakun leading the case. At some point, we've also seen Nana Boakye of the MPP leading the case. Now we understand Frank Davids also is a lawyer for the petitioner in this matter. Same with, of course, the defendant here, the former MP for Assin North. At a point, like you mentioned earlier, Amaliba was on the case, and now we have a different lawyer on it. What went into all these, or are these the legal tactics that can be employed by other party?
So, what if you look at the MPP for, let's take the MPP and or the petitioner in this particular matter, you would realize that all the lawyers who were involved in this particular case belong to their legal committee, right, with the chairman being Frank Davids. Right. So at the beginning of the case, and where from the, I think the 7th or 6th of December of January, where they went to court, you realize that it was Gary Nimakun who led that particular charge. He's also a member of the legal committee of the party. So what happened was that the party decided to choose some of their lawyers who were available at the time. Don't forget that Frank Davids is the chairman of the committee. So he has a hand in choosing who goes to what case at what point. Right. And this was the same period where you'd have the presidential petition going or preparing to be heard. So they were engaged, a number of their lawyers. So you saw Mr. Gary Numaku leading the charge for the injunction. Right after that, you saw Frank Davids and Nana Boakye also going. Nana Boakye was never the lead lawyer in the case. He was part of the lawyers who represented the petitioner in this particular matter. Mr. Frank Davids had always been the lead lawyer, and he had fought the case from the beginning. When it comes to the NDC, the NDC also started this case with the chairman of their legal committee also being part of this particular thing, Amaleba, being part of this particular thing. You saw Adaudu, lawyer Adaudu, also at a point from the very beginning being part of the matter till it progressed to where it's got
Fred,
into.
hold your horses there. We're going to go on the phone lines and speak to one of the lawyers for the petitioner in this matter, Nana Boakye. He's joining us via phone line. Grateful that you could join us. First of all, what does this mean to you and your client in this matter?
Thank you very much. First of all, this is a victory for rule of law, and clearly today's judgment is an endorsement of our position. The petitioner, Mr. Michael Ankuma-Nifa, we have always held the view that the election, even the filing of the parliamentary nomination form by the first respondent at the time who held a Canadian citizenship is in contravention of Article 94.2A of the Constitution, and also Section 92A of the Representation of People's Act. And we also pray the court to declare same as illegal, void of no effect. And today the court endorsed this petition. The court has ruled that the filing, the election, and even the sovereignty of both the Constitution and the Representation of People's Act. And for that matter, the election, the 2020 parliamentary election in Assin North is void, and the Electoral Commission must take steps to conduct first elections there. So for us, this is our view, and indeed we produce enough evidence to come this charges from justice, so we are good.
Right. Now, the declaration, of course, has been made. The petitioner or the defendant, the Assin North MP or former, as we would have it now, also has its options, including appealing their decision. But I want to find out from you and your client, does this settle the matter for you, owing to the fact that there are also criminal connotations to this, having been sworn in as MP and, of course, participating in the election of a Speaker of Parliament? Does this particular judgment settle the matter for you, or you're looking to press further charges?
Yeah, indeed. Let me also plead the court that our regional secretary has also made a formal complaint to the police CID. So I'm very sure that the police CID, with this judgment, would consider it critically assessed, and then also proceed with the criminal proceedings. I mean, we have precedents to that effect. You recall that in the Adamu Sekande's matter, there was a civil proceedings instituted against him, and then also a criminal charges that was slapped on him as well. Indeed, he was found to have been his election at that time in procedure Supreme Court. Nothing has changed. We have not had any amendment to the rules. We have not had any changes to the laws regarding dual citizenship and then contesting to MP. So yes, indeed, we are also looking forward for that. Today, I was even informed today by the regional secretary that we are also doing a formal conclusion. We are expecting the CID in collaboration with the National Department to also press some charges against the Honorable Prince. Don't forget that even before the swearing in, there was even an injunction against Honorable Prince in holding himself up as an MP, and that he must not even be sworn in at the time. But yes, he filed the court order and then moved on. So I am very sure that the criminal charges will only be pressed against him as well.
Right, now let's touch on elections in Assin North, if I may. I mean, the judgment has come. It's been declared null and void, and the EC, of course, is to conduct another election. But where lies the confidence of the New Patriotic Party in winning this election, should it be conducted today?
Well, we are fully in high spirit. At the Assin North seat was ours. Internally, we had some few challenges. You will notice that even His Excellency the President won in that competition. And then our parliamentary candidate, Abina and Yuwa, lost that position. So we had some internal challenges regarding the parliamentary election. So, this is something that we have since resolved. So, we are hopeful that if by-elections were to be conducted today or even tomorrow, we are going to take back our seats.
All right, thank you very much, Henry Nanaya Boache there, of course, one of the lawyers for the petitioner. Let's still stay on this matter and on the phone lines, because we have the petitioner himself on the phone lines. Michael Ankumanimfa is joining us. Thank you very much for joining us on Citi TV. Obviously, you must be elated. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Nimfa. Hello. Well, it looks like we're struggling to get the petitioner on the lines, but I still have Fred Jabano in studio with me. Let's look at the law underpinning this petition itself and, of course, the consequences thereof. So who is eligible to contest for parliamentary seats in this country per the laws as it is?
So, Nana, that will be found in Article 94 of the Constitution. And Article 94 of the Constitution, when you look at Section 2 of Article 94 of the Constitution, this is what it states. A person shall not be qualified to be a member of Parliament if he, A, owes allegiance to a country other than Ghana, or has been adjudged or otherwise declared to be so. Right. So in this particular matter, these are the two sections of Section 92 of the Constitution, Article 92, Section 2. Of the Ghanaian Constitution, 1992 Constitution, which has been implemented by the court.
Right. All right, thank you very much. Fred Jabano is one of our court correspondents, and he has kept an eye on this particular case. And so the ruling or the judgment today is that the election in Assin North that saw Joe Jachikwe go to Parliament to represent the people there as their MP has been declared null and void by a High Court in Cape Coast. The Electoral Commission subsequently has been ordered to conduct a new election that will see a new Member of Parliament for the people of Assin North. Options available to the former MP as it stands, and of course criminal proceedings. Options also available to the petitioner and his lawyers if they so choose. My name is Nanatufo Boate. Many thanks for joining us on this session as we brought you breaking news from Cape Coast, where the election of the Assin North Member of Parliament, Joe Jachikwe, has been declared null and void by a High Court. We'll bring you details in our subsequent bulletins, both on Citi TV and, of course, 97.3 Citi FM. Stay with us.